Hello guys, welcome to my channel Upskill Experts. And yes, today we are a little bit late, but still we are on time to start our sessions. So today's topic is SQL and PLSQL, right? Guys, the thing is, ultimately, whenever you are working on SQL and PLSQL, we forget that it's not a kind of subject where you just clear the subject and just you can not skip this subject. It's a kind of subject on which you can build your career. But majority of the students are not giving much attention to this SQL and PL SQL. But as a career opportunity, it's a very large domain of development and career building. So before we jump on to the presentation, I would like to share that if we talk about the SQL and PL SQL, so whatever the subject you are currently studying, like it might be possible that you are currently pursuing your undergraduate or might be your postgraduate student, right? The thing is, whenever you are studying this subject, there are basically two bifurcations as far as this subject is concerned. First one is either you can go for administration part, so that comes after your SQL and PL SQL. And as far as SQL is concerned, there is a administration part one, then administration part two, and a kind of things, right? One of the major thing where students are not make big attention is the certification. That's a big thing. Whenever you are pursuing your UG or PG, it's better to complete your certification, or at least complete one or two certification before you complete your masters, because that will give you a boost whenever you are entering into the industry, right? So the first thing is that if we talk about the bifurcation, or we can say that if you want to go into this field, so first pathway is administration, that is after completion of SQL. You can go for administration part 1 and you can go for administration part 2. So then you would be called as a DBA, who is handling the database. It's We are starting this from absolutely basic, so I assume that you don't have any knowledge of SQL and PL SQL. You have never heard about these things. Now further, second path can be considered as a developer, right? SQL, then PL SQL, then advanced PL SQL maybe. So after completion of that, you can enter into the Oracle Apex development, right? So there is a development environment where you can enter, right? So further, whenever you choose any language, okay, it might be any programming language, but just give at least a quick view to this particular technology. It will build a fantastic career out of it. So before wasting time, let me just share my screen so that we can continue the discussion of this introduction session. uh, I have seen, or rather observed, let me just share the screen. Yes, I have observed that every student, whenever they heard about SQL and PL SQL, they just assume that it's only queries that you are building. It's not like that. It's not like you are just starting, or a query building, or anything something like that on to the first uh, lecture or first time. There are lots of other things which you needs to understand. We'll start with this in this session. Just take a look on this one. I'm sure you have never, go through this kind of files. As you can see, the two, one at the bottom, there is this one, Oracle certified. So there is my Oracle certification, which I have done. And further, at upside, you can see my recent completed certification, that is associate cloud infrastructure. Now, if we talk about the Oracle database, then we can consider that, just a second. if we consider this database architecture, then whenever we install Oracle, any of the Oracle version, that all the data will be reside into this particular, different files. So we need to understand the Oracle architecture before we jump into the SQL and PL SQL, before we actually understand that how, you know, this data structure, or we can say that how data files are stored in our Oracle environment, then we need to understand its architecture, how, data is stored into the tables or structures. So these are the file which take cares of these things. We have control files, data files, online redo log files, archive logs files, password file, p file, and parameter files. So these are the files which we see whenever we install. Currently, in most of the colleges, we have seen that you are utilizing 11G still, right? So some of the colleges have jumped onto the 18C or something, but very rare colleges are there who worked on this latest version, that is 21. And so that's why we can say that's a very huge gap between industry and colleges. So that depends, some of the colleges are absorbing this new technologies, and you can be aware about those things. Let me move. Fine. So this is the database architecture. So let's start with the control files. So if I say that what is control file, then I would say that it's contain a data about the database itself. Okay. So all the data will be here in this one, and that is considered to be a metadata. And so ultimately, it's a critical files to the database where store your all the data. Now you cannot open this data files to access the data within the database. It's directly not accessible. You can access through the consoles. Second is the data files that contains the data of the database. Whatever you store, if I say the data, then data would be stored in the tables which we have, right? So that's a data file will contain our data. Another is online redo log files. So now this allow instance recovery of the database. Now sometimes it happens that uh, somehow you just skip some certain steps, or it might be possible that you have not executed the commands properly. So it might be possible that some certain period of time you required that executed command to be recovered, right? Or it might be possible your database has been compromised and you want to recover it. So that can be done from this, that is redo log file. So if the database crashes, okay, and does not lose any data files, so the instance can recover the database with the information in these files. So obviously, whenever you do anything, that will reside first here, and then it will goes to the database. So ultimately, from this place, you can recover your database. Further, there are other two files, maybe parameter file and password file. So if we say about the parameter file, this is used to define how the instance will be configured when it is startup, how you want to start your database. So I have seen people after installing Oracle, let's say, uh, where was it, let me just open this command prompt. Yes, size is a little bit bigger, let me make it somewhat smaller. Oh yes. Now consider, currently I'm not logged into any environment, so I'll do SQL plus and enter. So currently in my laptop I have 11G, and in my desktop I have 18C. So currently I'm executing it from my laptop, so it's 11G. So if you want to connect your database, then sys as sysdb. There are several ways also, and password. So I'm connecting to my 11G, right, Express Edition. Now here you can type your queries, but I have seen that majority of educational institution, they are following this particular environment, but industry won't do this. So we have a SQL developer. right? In the upcoming sessions, we will be covering that also, where you will be explored with the SQL developer, where you have the facilities of running a number of things. You can save the things, you can go through all the tables, you can visually visualize the things, you can see the visuals. GUI ultimately is there, right? Okay, fine. First thing the students facing the issue is somehow there some HR account, or some accounts are locked, and they need to unlock those passwords or these accounts. If I try to connect HR, I don't know whether that my account is open or not. And yes, it's connected. My HR account is connected. So if I type select star from maybe tab, then these are the files which is existed in my HR account, right? And currently I'm logged out of my admin account, right? So the thing is how to enable this HR account. So for that you need to go to, suppose obviously my current HR account is open, but suppose I want to unlock it first time, right? So again I would be connect as sysdba and the password. Okay, so it shows that in very login name. Let me just exit CLS and again, and the Oracle is the password. Yeah, fine. And now suppose I want to unlock the uh, some accounts, or somehow I forget the password, just use of that HR account. So alter user HR identified by HR. My HR is the password. Then account unlock. User is altered, and if I do connect HR with the username and HR is the password, and now I'm connected. Getting or not? So this is the first way which you need to execute whenever start your learning journey of the SQL and PLSQL, or even after you recently install your Oracle. Another file that we have is archive log files, which contains an ongoing history of the redo generated by the instance. Or these files allow for database recovery, and using these files and a backup of the database, you can recover a lost data file. If somehow you lost the data, you can grab from here also. Let's move now, and we have a control files. When you start the instance, so whenever you heard about this instance is you're creating a new instance whenever you're starting your Oracle, right? So it will create a new instance for you. So that is, you start the instance and mount the database. The control file is read, so it will initially read the control files. Now the entries in the control file, they specify the physical file that the database comprises. So if I go into my file, C drive Oracle XC app Oracle, see there are lots of folder. There is a product 11G server, right? Lots of things. Then here Aura data XC. These are the DMP file, DBF file. I have this instance, this many instance in my environment. Here admin, you can add, it's a P file, right? It's a DB file, it's a dump files. There are lots of files. Okay, to protect against failure of the database due to the loss of control file, you should multiplex the control file on at least 3 different physical devices. So what we do is we replicate our table space, so it will be entered into the 3 different places simultaneously. So whenever if one is crashed, or something happened to that, we can recover it from the second one. By specifying multiple files through the initialization parameter, you enable the Oracle database server to maintain multiple copies of the control file, right? So your control file will have a multiple items in it, okay? Or one item could be having a multiple copies of it. So you can, if something happens with the one file, you can recover it from the second one, and so on, right? Now these are the redo log files. See, you have a log writer, right? You have group 1, group 2, and group 3. So now you can use this log files to record these modification that you are doing into the database, and that results of transaction. Or transaction, maybe you are inserting something, or something updating or something. Now, redo log files should be multiplexed to ensure that the information stored in them is not lost in the event of disk failure. So ultimately, we are dividing or we are segregating the data into, or we are trying to store the data into three different locations, so that whenever any failure or anything happens, then we can recover that files from those areas. Now, the log writer, that is LGWR, is a process that writes redo records from the redo log buffer to redo log group until the file is filled or log switch operation is requested. Then it switches and write to the file. So this is the area where we do commit, right? So after certain statements, we execute a commit statement, right? And after that, all the data will be updated into the database. Now, the redo log groups are used in a circular fashion. Okay, it's group 1, group 2, group 3, and again group 1, group 2, group 3, and so on. Now, so this is absolutely basic of what we understand by Oracle, right? So further, we have a table space and a data files. If we consider a table space, then currently my and Oracle entire is my table space, and data file 1 and data file 2 are my files. Tablespace consists of one or more data files, and this belongs to only one tablespace. So data file obviously that belongs to only one tablespace. Database is divided into logical storage unit called as a tablespace, where each user can be used to group related logical structure. Each database is logical divided into one or more tablespaces. Now, one or more data files are explicitly created for each table space to physically store the data of all logical structure into the table. So ultimately, we have these files which store the data in it, like this one. So all the data will be reside in that environment only. All right. So everybody in at college time, whenever you're learning this subject first time, they just start with the SQL query, select star from this and that, right? So that is not the correct way. You need to understand that how the Oracle is storing the data into the database, right? So let's understand that one using the segments, extents, and blocks. So database objects such as tables and indexes are stored in a table space as a segment, right? So whenever you have a table or indexes that store in these segments. Now each segment contains one or more extents, and extents consist of continuous data blocks, which means that each extent can exist only in one data file. So under the segment, you would be having a extents. When the database requests a set of data blocks from OS, the OS maps this to an actual OS block, right? So we can say the segment is exist within the table space. Okay, so in a table space, you would be having the segments. So these segments are made up of collection of extents. So you would be having an extents in that one. So under that extent, you would be having a collection of data blocks, and under that data blocks, you would be having a OS blocks where you store all the data, right? So this is the correct way of how the data is been stored, and you should understand this one before going into the SQL and PLSQL. Because of this, you need not to be aware about the physical address of any of the data in your database. So this also means that the data files can be striped and or mirrored on a several disks. So it might be possible that you have different OS blocks under that one, and you are storing those files, right? Okay, fine. So instance management is there. Okay, we have a shared pool, that is shared pool stream area. We have a large pool, Lido, log file, log buffer, database files, and there are lots of other things as far as this entire structure is concerned. We create a lots of files, so you have to dig into it in detail before entering into this SQL word. So whenever you create a table, just simply fire a query that create table name. It's not only doing that a create file, but it will do lots of things in that inside the database, and you need to understand that one, right? Okay, so what is OM? OM in Oracle Database Server consists of Oracle Database and Oracle Instance. And Oracle Instance is made up of buffers, known as SGA, that is System Global Area, and background processes that's handled all the behind the scenes, everything regarding that instance. If the instance is idle until it is shared, when the instance is started, an initialization parameter file, that is P file, is read and instance is configured according to the instruction given in that file. So after that instance start, the database is open and user can access those database. So we can say sometimes that my database is stop or pause mode and something. The first part, or we can say it's an introduction session. So if if anyone wants to join the full course where we are going to learn all the SQL and PLSQL fundamentals, then you can join this link using this link. Just register from this link, and this course on percent discount by this weekend, or anybody register by this weekend will get a 50% discount on the seat course. Have any query, as I mentioned in my earlier video, that if you have any query or any specific request regarding the uh, you know any topic, just ping me in this video or in the earlier video. We'll try to cover up the things in the upcoming videos. And one more thing, in today in I think today at 4 o'clock we are going live for the Oracle Apex session, and there you will I coming